Smash that like button or Terry will steal your underwear. What is up, Ham Radio? Kilo Echo 8, Papa Zulu November, the Ham Radio Adventure Guy. Thanks for stopping by. Your one stop for everything Adventure Radio. It is Hump Day. Time for the Hump Day Happy Hour. And it's going to be a good stream, or at least we're going to wing it and try to make it one.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to the chat, especially if you're one of these guys, because these guys are the cause of my high blood pressure, my ulcers, my now these guys are awesome. I absolutely appreciate each and every one of them. Sometimes they might put me in the hospital, but they're okay guys. Also, shout out to these guys right here. Even though everybody's scared to be a rover, you know, take the chance, get in the car, go do a rove, and come back and sign up for a rover and show us you got what it takes. Also, the ever-changing board who didn't even change this week. So, still, this is a record for this year. 2 shows straight that Josh was not up on the top. But, Josh, if you are in the chat right now, because I haven't looked at the chat yet, I hope your back is doing much better. And I like it better when you're home. You get to hunt me a whole lot more. So, even though it takes him about 4 minutes to get to the radio. So,
well, I mean, he has to get up off. I mean, he has to find his walker and sludge over there, you know. But yeah, happy Wednesday, everybody in the chat. It is the Hump Day Happy Hour. Toby is at her club meeting, but she did drop in and out to the Hump Day Happy Hour net. So thank you very much, Toby. Alpha Delta 2 Charlie Delta. What's happening? Kilo Oscar 4 Golf. Bravo. Larry, good to see you. Rod K4DSX and Ronnie Kilo Oscar 4
Zulu
Romeo X-Ray. Good to see you, buddy. Kelly Rose KI4JAV KO4FSZ antennas in the house. Good to see you, buddy. George Broadway, that's our Duke of Alabama. The Bang Bang. Good to see you, man. And I hope you're feeling better and get better. My mom, Kyle, Alpha 0 Zulu, is actually in the chat at the beginning of a stream. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you very much for being here, Kyle. Appreciate it. Paul Hopman, good to see you. Whiskey 8 Echo, Romeo is on the lawnmower. That's dedication. You're listening to the stream and mowing the grass at the same time, man. I love it. Larry, the loudmouth from Hammertown, Victor Echo 3 Lima, Bravo, India. Good to see you. The opening music got Dan pumped, N8TIN. That is why we do it, buddy. And awesome. Good to see you. Jeff M, KD9ZSL. Well, I can say Zulu with yours too, Jeff. Kilo Delta 9, Zulu, Sierra Lima. Good to see you. Prep Ham Paul, Chris, Whiskey Zero, Charlie Golf Charlie, Kilo Oscar 4, November, Lova, Smoking Poda in the house. And last but not least, and if I forgot anybody else, I'm sorry, but last but not least, he said we can start now because he's here. Georgia Parks and Propagation, my boy Ron Chris, Alpha Echo 4 X-Ray Oscar. Happy Sunday, everybody.
Oh, Sunday.
Did I do it again?
You did it again.
Man, I'm telling
you.
It is Hump Day. Run, man. Okay, hold on. Last but not least, he said we can start the stream because he's here and because I don't know what damn day it is. Alpha Echo 4, X-Ray Oscar. That's Ron Chris, Georgia Parks and Propagation. Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Oh.
No, Patrick. No. Patrick, KC2, BKM. Good to see you, buddy.
It's okay because, I do that sometimes too. I wonder what day it is. And I don't know if you gave Kelly Rose a shout out. She's in the chat. Mm-hmm. Kelly, actually, if you don't care, send me a message. I have a question for you. And a couple other people probably already know what it is. But I got a question for you. So send me a message if you don't care.
I believe I did. If I did not, I'm fired. Sorry if I did not. Miss Kelly Rose.
It's for something that's coming up that the Patreons requested. So.
No, Eddie, it's not Parks and Appropriation. It's Parks and Propagation.
Yes, the heat done got to Dan. He thinks it's Sunday, and listen, I'll tell you what.
Brutal hot.
The heat has been brutal, but I'm still going out in midday and activating for you people. So for those hunters who are sitting in the air condition at their house and still want to try to talk over top of me, that's pretty rude because I'm burning up. The whole kingdom is infested with yellow jackets.
I read something about that. Yes,
dude. The other night, I went and set up for an early late shift, and no sooner than got set up, and I'm getting ready to look for a frequency. I look over, and there's like 100 yellow jackets, and they are all around.
Wow.
Yankee Victor Delta, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm about done with this.
No kidding.
So tore right back down and went to another spot. Still, because we know it don't take real long to do an early shift. Still got that activation done, but it was kind of brutal.
Those are the ones that make their nest in the ground, right?
Yes.
I've had one run-in with those in my life. I was out in the back of my parents' yard and a tree fell, and I was out there cutting up the tree, and apparently they didn't like the vibrations from the chainsaw or me doing something, and I don't know where the hell they came from, but all of a sudden they tore my legs up from my kneecap down.
Yeah, they're kind of aggressive.
Yeah. Well, I ran and 50 feet away, they were still on me.
But now, I don't know if this is true or not, but everybody swears that Dawn dishwashing liquid, not any other dishwashing, but Dawn dishwashing liquid will kill them on contact.
Interesting.
I've also heard that you mix water and a tablespoon of Dawn and a teaspoon of peppermint oil and pour it down in a hole, and it'll take out the whole hive.
I've always heard of gasoline, but yeah.
Yeah, gasoline, and you light it up and you run, then you have the forestry service come to your house, and
not necessarily light it up and run, but the fumes from it too. So yeah.
Well, now like wasp and stuff will definitely be taken out by gasoline. I have taken cans of gasoline and put them over wasp nests and watched the wasp just to fall out of the nest dead.
Well, see, that's the thing, dude. I mean, I don't like wasps at all, and I got a wasp problem here because they like to get underneath the eaves of the house and build their nest and stuff. And I always use just a wasp spray that hits it and it kind of foams up around the nest, and it kills them. I don't want to get that close to actually put a jar of gasoline over.
Eric said he needs something to kill his COVID germs that he feels like garbage.
Oh man, I hope you feel better.
Vitamin D10, vitamin C, and what's the other one? Oh my God,
Zinc.
I can't. Zinc and zinc. I can get you the exact dosages to take of that, and it'll knock it out really, really quick. But other than that, you probably got COVID because no hams do CW in Hawaii. Start saying Ohio. It is a curse because no hams do it. Anyway, we actually have a topic tonight, and we're going to see how it goes because it's a topic I don't know really jack crap about. Because we all know that why would I talk about a home station? Because my home station is in a park somewhere. But we're going to talk about it because here lately, I have been trying to make the home station better. FTA gave me COVID. You know what?
That's a t-shirt.
That's a great t-shirt. I would definitely wear that. I would definitely wear that for sure.
Oh, that's great.
You're gonna get all the people that support me that does FTA back on my list again. They're gonna be like, you said you was gonna stop talking about it. It's not that I hate the FTA. It's I hate that the people who do FTA get away with murder.
Just as a quick aside for everybody out there before we get to the topic of this evening, the PZN challenge in 2025 is going to be FTA only, by the way.
No. I figured it out today. I'm going to give away a huge radio next year. We're talking like thousands of dollars. But at the beginning of the day, I spin a board before I leave the house, and it has all the bands on it. Whatever band that lands on, that's what frequency you have. That's what band you have to get me on that day for it to count.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So y'all better be running around with them 160-meter whips in your truck when you're going down the road to Taco Bell.
Curtis. Kilo Bravo 3, Charlie Mike Tango. Welcome to the chat, buddy.
Oh, always a pleasure. So Dan has actually built a good home station once, and he's working on a second one now.
Yeah.
So he's probably got all kinds of tips and tricks for building a big home station. But what I'm also going to do, and I hate when I do this, because I'm going to feel like what's that America Got Talent when they hit the X, and if there's so many X's, you're out. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and if you got some good tips about things to improve your home station, now this could be anything from organization to better signals, anything like that. There we go. All starts with a comfy chair.
You damn right.
I'm going to agree with that because you don't want to sit in a hard. That's probably why I do POTA, Curtis.
Wait, I'll show my chair.
No, now think about this. This could be why I really got addicted to going out and doing POTA activations. Because when I started in ham radio, there was a metal chair, one of them fold-out metal chairs that sat in front of my radio when I would hunt. And that's probably why I said, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's probably the thing. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. And if you do have something you think you would want to add, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you come in here and don't have good audio or good video, or you're talking about eating at Taco Bell, we're probably going to just, you accidentally dropped, and we'll drop it. But if you got something, you can tell me. So one thing I've been doing is, Kelly said she needs to get a better chair in her ham shack and a beer fridge. There we go.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend hours upon hours of hunting stations, you need a comfortable chair, and having a good beer fridge right beside you would be good to have as well. So that's a good idea. But one thing I've been doing, the house next to me is throwing the worst noise off ever. And it's like it's on my nerves. I can't do nothing here. How in the world, that there's people that hunt from here, but it sure ain't me because I ain't about this. We all know we had this discussion on Sunday. James like his radio conversations to sound like you're talking to him on the phone. He doesn't like that garbled noise. He doesn't like any of that stuff. So when I go in and my noise floor is, S20 and PP Man's doing QRP across the country and message me saying, why didn't you hunt me? Why didn't you hunt me? And sorry, got a question in the chat, Brent Bottle.
There it is.
And speaking of Dr. Pepper, going to be delivered to me tonight. At some point tonight, I am going to have a Dr. Pepper donut. They announced them, and it will be delivered tonight. So,
a Dr. Pepper donut.
Mm-hmm. Listen, you got to try it.
Hey, that's a short right there. You should do a Dr. Pepper donut reaction.
Oh, speaking of shorts, it wasn't a short, but it was a TikTok. I finally got to do my contacting aliens video.
Nice.
For TikTok. If you didn't see it, you should go check it out. It's pretty funny. I think anyway. I just happened to look up and like, whoa, this is so cool. So you should check out my TikTok if you ain't checked that out. But one thing I've been doing is trying to figure out a way to get, we all have this thing. We know what to do if we have noise in our own house, First off, kill all the breakers and go one by one, see where your noise is coming from, narrow it down, and find out what it is. But when it's your neighbor's house, it's not as easy. So one way I'm trying to combat this, and it may or may not work, but I know I've spent too much money on it already, so I'm hoping it does. I'm building a loop to ground antenna that will probably be ready by the weekend because I got one more piece, and then I got to make sure I got enough wire here to do it. I got one more piece coming in, and really the antenna can be done without the pieces coming in Thursday, but I got a switch so I can switch between the different antennas coming. But I could test it without that switch. And I'm really hoping that that's going to, make some of the noise a whole lot better. Now, here's the thing. If you guys have used a loop on ground, and I know Dan has, but he hasn't done it this way. Orange moon pie, that sounds fictitious. I've seen an orange moon pie, Eddie.
Have you went over to your neighbor's house yet and just pulled out their power meter just to make sure it's them? So sorry, I'm just testing some stuff. I'm an FCC licensed operator. Excuse me.
If he didn't have cameras, I used to actually read power meters when I was younger. I'm very capable of doing that, but he sort of has cameras all over the place. So, and he works for 911. But I'm probably not going to go that route.
Yeah, might be a good idea.
But I do know that this wall, which is right against the wall where the radios are, he has a whole wall of electronics there hooked up. It is. I haven't seen it, but I've been told it's the length of the wall and it's plumb full of electronics that are plugged in and hooked up. So I'm going to try a loop on ground, but I'm going to try it a little different. I'm going to try it with the loop on ground. It's going to be buried a little bit under the ground. I'm not going to go with the stakes and hopefully. See, I don't cut the grass out there, and I don't trust it not getting sucked up in the lawnmower. So I'm going to put it a little bit under the ground. And I'm also adding a vertical with a lot of radials, and those radials are also going to be out of the ground. So this is going to go from a one antenna show here to a vertical, then fed, and the loop on ground. So that's where I'm going right now.
Sounds like a good setup.
So tell me some of your tricks that you've done over the years, Dan, because I know
And this is the problem with this topic. You can go down a rabbit hole just on one particular thing and take up an hour. There's a lot of different facets here.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've always told people that are either building their shack from scratch or wanting to upgrade their shack, start outside, start at your antenna. Because that's the most important part that you're going to have. I've recently moved. I don't have the luxury of having 120-foot pine trees where I am right now. So my antenna is not nearly as high. I'm running the same antenna that I was, but it's not nearly as high as what it used to be. So if you have the luxury of trees, those can be a great asset to you because you can shoot a rope 80, 90, 100 feet in a tree if you have a real big, tall honking pine tree. You get your antenna really high, and you can do dipoles, you can do end feds. If you got multiple trees, you can do sky loops. You can hang whatever you want from trees and get it really high. But start outside, work on the antenna first, because that's going to be, without a good antenna to start with, it doesn't matter what radio you buy. It doesn't matter what kind of feed line you use. It doesn't matter much of anything if what you're going to be transmitting out of is crappy. So start upstairs on the antenna. Set up your shack the way you want it. I know there's tons of pictures of people's shacks out there and say, oh, it's cool to have a stack of stuff here, and or maybe some people custom build cabinets so each radio has their own little nook and cranny and stuff like that. Set it up how you want. Me, I prefer my radio to the left side of me because I'm right-handed. Excuse me, my radio to the right side of me because I'm right-handed. I had it to the left side of me for a while, but I found it hard for me with my left hand to manipulate the buttons and stuff. I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you probably want it on your left side. So figure out whatever kind of layout is good for you too. Back to antennas. If you're going to run vertical, if you have room for a tower, that's cool too. Towers can get expensive quick, depending on what kind you get, how high you can go. Do you have the space to guy a tower, or do you have to do something freestanding, or maybe house bracketed or something like that? So you have to keep that stuff in mind. Sometimes a tower is actually going to end up being your cheapest option in the long run if you don't have, like I said, 120 feet of trees to throw up. But Izzo, good to see you, buddy. But start outside with your antennas. Your antenna is the most important thing. Ideally, you want something, resonant. I'm not going to lie. I have a resonant antenna out there, but my main antenna is a non-resonant antenna. I need a tuner, and that's not optimal. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it is. If you have the space and you have the means, put up a lot of resonant antennas. If you have an antenna switch, dude, put up 7 damn resonant wires and just switch them on your antenna switch. It's going to be better than going through a tuner and trying to force a wire to work on a certain frequency. But there's so many different nitpicking areas about shack setup, what you should do in certain situations, that you can go down the rabbit hole on this, guys. No, I mean, you can spend days researching how to set up your shack. But first, start outside with your antenna. Get a decent antenna system. That's my number one goal. Then work backwards towards your shack. So after your antenna, then work on your feed lines, to the shack. The diameter of feed line when you're on HF is not as important as it is if you're working VHF, UHF. So you don't need big honking 1/2-inch hard line or 7/8 hard line coming down, on HF, RG8, or what do we just figure out for ABR? ABR 240 will be fine. You'll start seeing more losses as you get higher in bands. Like if you get up 10 meters and you start working maybe some 6 meters, you're going to see more loss out of that coax. But for 40 meters, 20 meters, it'll be fine. Yeah, RG8X is fine for HFC if you're right. Until you start getting up into, like I said, 10 meters and 6 meters, and you'll start to see more loss with that the longer runs you have. Because I'm going to assume most people, their distance from their shack to outside in the backyard or up in the tree, wherever they have their antennas, I'm going to say is at least 50 feet. On average, I'd say probably 100 feet, from the back of your radio or wherever you're going to terminate your antenna to the actual antenna. I'll say probably average of 100 feet. Anybody have any questions so far? Because we're going to start working backwards towards the shack here.
Since we're working backwards, you mentioned antenna first, and that's definitely not the problem here because, I mean, even though the noise floor is stupid, I can SDR and hear a station anywhere, and barefoot as can be, they'll hear me. I get out with the antenna, but it's definitely the noise for me that I got to work on. But since we touched on antennas, I'm gonna save some people some money. You can go over to Kilo Oscar 4 Fox Sierra Zulu and use the code ATRAG and save yourself a little bit of money. You can go to Eagle One Antennas and use the code ATRAG and save a little bit of money. Or you could go to my link on hamradioadventureguy.com and go down to the Gigaparks link and use the code ATRAG there. But you do have to go to that link first and get some money saved on Chameleon antennas. Same with coax. The Gigapark link has Messy Poloni, and I also have my favorite, the ABR link at the bottom of that page as well. So save yourself some money while you're setting this stuff up.
Oh yeah. Me myself, my 2 runs. Well, I got 3 runs of coax coming in if you count the loop, but my 3 runs of coax are actually LMR 400, and yes, it's you don't need it. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now. I had a buddy who gave me a hell of a deal on some Times Microwave LMR 400 that I couldn't pass up. I did not pay retail price for it, nor probably would I. And if I wouldn't have got this deal, I'd probably be running, RG8X. But I'm running LMR 400 for both of my transmit antennas, and my loop on ground is just a cheap old 75 ohm cable TV satellite, TV coax. So Larry brings up a good point. If you use an end fed, use a choke before going into your shack. The reason for that is your end feds are going to use your coax as part of your counterpoise system. So at your shack ingress point, make sure you choke that off so you don't get common mode on your coax coming back into your shack. So, we covered coax. We covered the most important thing, which is your antenna. I would say right there, as far as, let's go to like shack protection, because that still has to do with outside. So we're still outside right now. Let's say you have an end fed or a dipole, or you have a huge 7-element beam on top of a 100-foot tower. It really doesn't matter. When you ingress your coax to your shack, you need something there for static discharge and lightning protection. I don't like saying lightning protection because it's really for static discharge. If lightning strikes your antenna, I don't care what protection or what kind of grounding you have. Lightning do what lightning do. Okay. I mean, you can ask our friend Whiskey Zero Charlie Golf Charlie about this. You can mitigate some things. You can do the best you can, but if you get a direct strike at that point, you're along for the ride. Okay. So static discharge is what we're looking for, and that's to dissipate these nearby lightning strikes. When I say nearby for a lightning strike, I'm talking about like 5 miles in, guys. I mean, it can be a good distance. Okay. Have something there at your ingress point to your house, whether you're running your coax through a crack in the door or maybe through your attic soffit and then down to your shack, however you're getting it. while it's still outside, have something. Name brands I'm going to throw out, non-sponsored. Alpha Delta, I believe, makes a good static discharge protector, lightning arrestor, polyphasers, which I use. There's probably a couple other companies there, but the key is do it to the manufacturer's instructions. So if you get a polyphaser name brand, if you get an Alpha Delta lightning arrestor, whatever, follow their instructions on how they want it grounded and follow that. Okay. If you're going to ground outside, if you're going to drive a ground rod outside, don't think that you can just drive a ground rod, hook the shield of your coax to it, and be good. That ground rod has to be bonded back to your main house bonded ground, at the outside electrical panel. Chances are where your electrical comes into the house, when they installed your electricity, they drove a ground rod there, and your ground rod, there's one down there somewhere. Get a metal detector. It might be a couple feet underground at this point, no matter. I mean, I don't know how long your house has been there, but dirt could have built up over it. Mine was like 8 inches underground or something like that. Everything that you use or gets grounded, ground it back to that common ground. That way, everything in your house, everything you have plugged into a wall outlet, your coax is all at the same potential for grounding. Okay. Like I said, we can go on for a whole hour about grounding systems and probably get into a good discussion and have a lot of disagreements. But the main idea is if you get a surge, you want everything in your house, especially everything in your shack, to rise and fall at the same time. If you have a separate ground somewhere, the potential to that ground or the impedance to that ground is going to be different. And the electricity is going to follow the path of least impedance. So now it's going to try to use this ground, and all of a sudden everything else is going to try to use that ground as well. And that might not be the one that's connected back to the main panel. So traveling him, I'm glad to see this is a grounded live stream. It is. So proper grounding and follow the manufacturer's instructions for whatever lightning arrestor, static discharge protector is what I call them, that you're going to use. So I think that about covers outside. Brent has a good. Brent, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I can't show it right now because it's over here, but I'll get to the unplug part. That's the best thing. If there's a storm in your area, unplug your antennas. Straight up, just unplug your antennas. It's a lot cheaper to replace a wire in a tree or 100 feet of coax than it is your HF radio or your tuner or your amplifier or whatever else you might have into the shack. So, anybody have any questions on anything so far as antennas, coax to your ingress point outside before we get to the inside part?
So I'm a little more paranoid than that. Not if there's a storm in the area. When I get done making a contact on the home radio, the antenna gets unplugged. I have a quick disconnect on it. It's not a big deal. It's just as easy for me to pull that thing as anything else. That way, when I go do 7 POTUS in a row, and then I find out that there was a lightning storm over the house, I'm not worried.
I'm still here. I'm trying to find something.
And quick connectors are a good save for a lot of different things, guys. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically your coax will screw in to the quick connector, and then the front end will just slide on your radio.
So it's all tied in over here to my grounding bus bar and everything. I can't bring it over here to show you, but I have a device called it's a weird name. It's called a dual antenna disconnector made by Paradigm. You can look them up. Mine takes 2 inputs, 2 outputs, and a DC voltage, and it has a grounding lug on it where you hook up to your ground system. What this grounding thing from Paradigm does is when there's 12 volts of DC applied to this box, it connects the antennas together. So A input to A output, B input to B output, they're connected. So it takes two antennas. When you remove 12 volts from this box, it will take the A and B side, both the tip and the shield, and shunt them to ground. So basically, when I turn that box off, my antennas are disconnected from the shack. So that's the first thing that comes into the shack. That's the first thing they hit is that box. So what's nice about that is if you have a Node Red or even a Raspberry Pi or something like that, you can control that remotely. So you can say, hey, I want to operate remote. Let's go ahead and turn my power supply on. Let's go ahead and connect my antennas and do everything else. So
if you look back far enough, I've got a video of that thing. But it's a really interesting device, and I remember when they first was bringing it to the shows and stuff. Very, very cool thing.
Yeah, they are for sure. So inside now, I guess I just touched on it. The first thing you want to do when you bring your coax into your shack, whatever you're going to plug it into first, be it your antenna tuner or back of your amplifier or the back of your radio, whatever your coax is going to touch first, you want to be able to disconnect that regularly, rapidly, and easily. There are a couple of different ways. I just mentioned the Paradan, the automatic disconnector, which disconnects if you remove power from the unit, which is fast. You just unplug it or turn your power supply off, one of the two. The other one is a SO239 to PL259 slip adapter, which I've tested these things up all the way to legal limit and maybe a little past legal limit, but don't let anybody know. Never had any problems with them whatsoever. And they screw onto the end of your coax, you take your PL259, you screw it onto the end of the slip-on connector, and the end of the slip-on connector has little fingers on it, and you just push it onto an SO239, and it makes really solid contact. And if you want to unplug it, you just pull it right off. You don't have to spend time unscrewing it and screwing it back on, unscrewing it and screwing it back on. It's a really fast and simple progress. I use them for POTA too, because if I'm out in a park and I had the slip-on connectors on both sides of my 50-foot of coax, got it on the antenna side and my radio side. That way, if Susie Q and her kids are running through the park and they grab my coax with their foot or something like that, when they tug on that coax, it's just going to disconnect from the antenna or disconnect from the back of my radio. It's not going to drag it off the park bench, right? So, but they're really useful from inside the shack too, not only to quickly disconnect your antennas when you're not using them or when a storm's coming, but even if you just want to test. I mean, I do a lot of antenna testing and I get tired of screwing antennas on, screwing them off all the damn time. Just slip it on the connector, slip it off. That's all you need to do. Any other questions so far? Yeah.
I've used one for a long time. I don't think I'm worried about that point too, Curtis. And I'll tell you, it actually saved my radio before.
Yeah, that was the deer.
I know for people who's watched the show for a while, they've all heard the deer story. There you go, 43 viewers and only 23 likes. Hit that like button. Come on, guys. Thank you very much for the super chat. We proved this the other night how lazy people are when they're in here to hit that like button.
That's right.
And Larry needed me to do a late shift that night, and I said I wasn't getting it if I didn't get another 20 likes. And we got them really fast. And then Michael requested a certain park, and I said, well, we got to go another 10 likes. And before you know it, we had almost everybody that was viewing that had liked it. And it's that simple every night, guys. Just hit it. It doesn't cost you nothing. But anyway, I was sitting there activating, and out of the corner of my eye, I see something moving really fast. And I see a deer running. I was like, oh, I wonder what scared that deer. And it runs right slap. And about the time its hoof was raising up, it caught that coax and pulled it up. And I was just quick enough to reach up and grab the radio, and instead of my back of my radio getting stripped out because it or still pulled out of my hand because it had screwed in, it had one of them quick connectors, and the coax just went flying out. Yes, my coax was destroyed, but that was before I used AVR with the cool stuff.
Yeah, better than having a radio destroyed. That's for sure. All right, so we are inside the shack now. As far as how to build your shack, always from outside in. I'm going to keep stressing that. Start at your antennas, build back towards your sitting area. Okay. Here is where it's really how much do you want to spend and what do you want to get out of it? If you want to be a QRP shack, this is awesome because you really don't need to spend much except for your QRP radio. Just take your antenna that you got already fed in, you plug it in, you're pretty much good to go. You know, the more power that you want to put out, the more financially heavy your install is going to be. Because one, you're going to need the amp. Okay. Now you're going to need to invest in a tuner. If you don't run resonant antennas, you're going to need to invest in tuner that can handle the power that you're putting out of the amp. And I'll go ahead and tell you, when you start getting into legal limit capable tuners, you're starting to get into some dollars. Okay. So it all depends on what you want to do with your shack, what power you want to run, what your purpose is. If you're looking to build a K3 LR-esque, DX hunting machine shack, you're going to be forking out a buku dollars. Okay. If you want a modest shack, you're looking at a modest amount of money. All personal preference here, guys. I got in mind, the first thing my coax hits, like I said, is that paradigm disconnector. Then it goes to my tuner, then down to the amplifier, and then over to the radio. You don't need an amplifier. I know plenty of people that hunt with 100 watts and a wire that do fine. Last year's plaque event for POTA, Kilo Oscar 4 Golf Alpha Romeo came in second place on my heels. I mean, so he came in second, but he wasn't like a far second. He was close second to me. He was running 100 watts on wire, spinning the dial, no cat control, spinning the dial to find frequencies. And he did a jam up job. You don't need power. Okay. It helps. I'm not going to get you wrong, but you don't need it. Yeah. So good antennas, 75 watts, it's perfect, dude. What kind of radio should you run? This is the age-old question. If anybody's seen my latest video, you know very well I'm not vendor stuck. Okay. I'm vendor agnostic, as I call it. I own Elecrafts, I own Icoms, I own Yaesus, I own the Booth Fangs. Whatever works. Find something that you like and stick with it and set it up the way you want it set up, as far as, how far away from it should be, how far away your radio should be from your eyes. I need mine farther away than I did, say, 10 years ago, because my close-up vision is starting to go. So set up your shack. If you're building one from scratch, measure the radio that you have or thinking about getting. Measure the monitors that you're going to have for your computer, where you're going to lay things out, and either design, build, or pick up furniture that's going to fit your needs. It's a lot easier to do it when you're building your shack than to go from, say, a regular lunch table, temporary type setup, and then having to redo everything to a new desk. It's a lot easier just to go ahead and get the desk you want to start with, then put your stuff on it. So, as far as inside the shack, your layout it's totally up to you and how you want it laid out and everything else. Any questions so far?
Gene McPhee said workbench work areas, wood or metal. I would suggest wood.
Yeah.
What I have in my personal home shack, and it works really well. Um, anybody does have metal, let me know how that turned out for you.
I would, I would suggest wood as well because I do a lot of work with batteries. And the last thing I want to do is accidentally have a lead hanging off a battery and say it's accidentally touching that metal desk.
Yeah.
And then I have a lead hanging off the other side of the battery and accidentally touch that metal desk.
Yeah, and as far as putting together stuff, accidental wire hits the metal and then you spark, and you just the thing that you just took 4 hours to build because it's so tiny just went up in smoke. So I would definitely suggest wood.
And you have to think too, getting back to grounding, everything is going back to a common point ground in my shack. Every chassis that I have, everything that has a grounding lug on it from the manufacturer has its own separate ground strap. And I use the flat braided ground strap, the 1 inch. Have it on everything that has a ground connector on it. And that all goes back to a single point ground, which is tied into the main electrical panel ground. If you have a metal desk, you're going to have to ground the desk because you want everything in your shack when, say, if you get static discharge or you get a power surge or anything like that, you want every chassis you have, every piece of equipment, you want that voltage to rise and fall at the exact same time. You don't want one to have more potential or less potential than the other because now you just introduced a new ground path and all that voltage is going to go to the path of least resistance. That's when stuff starts to get fried. If everything rises and falls at the same time, everything's common bonded to a single point ground, you don't have that problem. So grounding is very important in your shack. Electrical RF grounding. This is RF grounding is a hot topic. Okay. I don't ground anything for RF. The electrical side of things I ground. As far as doing grounding for RF grounding specifically, nah, not me. Yeah, I'm about to make some people mad. You're right. So, yeah.
So just to clear something up, because Craig said he thought I was in Florida today, and me and Dan talked about this backstream. Yes, I need new glasses. Yes, I do fat finger things all the time. I was at 1819, not 1919. I was in West Virginia, not Florida this morning. So for the 14 or 15 people who got me on CW, I was not in Florida.
But yeah, grounding, I would say, is one of the most important things you can do for your shack as far as protection and noise. A good grounding to a common point ground where everything is at the same potential is it'll actually help you cut out some noise. So make sure your stuff is grounded. Don't rely on just the shield of your coax that happens to be connected to the chassis or your radio. Don't rely on that to be your ground point. For there's a reason why these manufacturers put a dedicated ground screw on the equipment, because that's what it's there for. You don't want to rely on the ground prong of a 3-prong electrical connector. You want to have that dedicated ground strap on there and have all those ground straps connected together so they'll all be at the same potential. If you want to go farther with that, you should really probably have all the ground straps the same length as well and the same width, made out of the same material. You can pick up a 1-inch flat braided ground strap on Amazon for cheap. You can get rolls of 50 feet of it for relatively cheap.
So how did you ground your rod that's outside of your shack with the one that goes into the house? Same stuff.
Dug a trench.
Dug a trench.
Yeah. Put down solid copper, not the strap, just solid copper wire. Yep. and that's from the outside. The inside of the shack here, I have I want to say 6-gauge wire running from my ground bus bars underneath the desk over here. And that 6-gauge wire runs up into the attic over to the panel, then down and outside straight to that ground rod as well. I guess you could ground it, inside of the electrical panel too, because I guess technically that ground also goes out to the ground rod, but I ran it straight to the ground rod outside. But you can get into a whole grounding is, man, you can get into a whole just a rabbit hole, because you could start talking about having isolated grounds in your shack and all sorts of stuff. It's man, there's a rabbit hole to go down if you're interested in grounding. I mean, yeah, check out 6-gauge solid copper. The not cheap stuff, but hey, if I would rather spend $75, $80, $100 on a good spool of grounding wire than $3,000 on another radio. So.
I'm pretty sure you got more than that. You dug a trench. I'm sure you got more money in grounding than that.
Yeah.
For sure. Anyway, it just wasn't even a grounding stream, but you got a grounding lesson from Dan, because I can't wait to see what his new shack becomes. Although he's worried so much about height, his vast antenna. Yes, he was louder at his vast place, but I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm only up about 31 feet, and I can break any pile I need to on 83 watts. But you don't got to be. Matter of fact, it was windy yesterday. And I got doing one of the activations that I did yesterday, and I looked behind me, and I did the old K8 MRD lean into the tree, with the spider beam pole. And my pole was leaned somewhere else, that it wasn't even in that tree no more. And my infed wire, it came down and it sloped, and it was running about probably 3 feet off the ground, and then just shot straight up to that pole where it was, man. So I still got plenty of contacts. It's all good.
Gene McPhee brings up a good point. What if your shack is in a vehicle or a trailer? All right, so vehicle grounding is same as your electrical grounds in your vehicle. You'll bond it to the chassis of your vehicle, right? And for your trailer, you bond it to the chassis of the trailer. You just want everything electrical to have the same potential and the same the I word, help me out, guys. The same impedance to ground. I don't know why I just had a brain fart there. You want everything to have the same impedance to ground, so it has the same potential. If you're in a trailer or a vehicle, don't worry about, unless you're getting your power from a detached structure. You don't have to worry about a ground rod or tying that back into whatever electrical source you have. Now, if you're getting your power from a structure, you should tie your ground back to the common point house ground of the structure you're getting your power from, if that makes sense. So if your trailer is sitting outside and you have an extension cord running to it from your house, and that's how you're getting your power, you should ground the stuff in your trailer back to your main house ground, because that's where the power is coming from. Or it's going to try to ground it through the grounding pin on that 3-pin plug. It's going to try to use that just as the ground for everything, and it might not work out so well.
Hey, thanks for the super chat, Chris, and congratulations on your 500 with Dom. And since Don popped in, even though I've congratulated him a couple of times, congratulations on your 1,000 with me. Also, congratulations to Larry, Kilo Echo 8 Uniform Kilo X-Ray, and Kilo 9 India Charlie Papa this week for their 1,000 with me.
Yeah.
On to 5,000, guys.
I'm close to 3, I think. I need a handful more for 3,000.
You are close to 3,000. I was looking at it the other night. There's one person that's inching their way up to that 5,000 coin. I don't play with those coins because I give out too many, guys. You get one for 1,000, then your next one's 5,000. Nobody's produced anything over five. There's somebody that's at 6,000 something. I'm nowhere near giving away another coin because I don't even know where that level is going to be. But we'll see.
But yeah, the overall we're coming up on the top of the hour here, but overall, if you're building a shack or redoing your shack, start outside. Start at your antenna side and then work your way back towards your radio side. Because what's outside matters the most as far as because that's what puts your signal up into the ether. So start with that, make sure that's good, and then work your way back, coax, grounding. The most important things, if you had to ask me, in order is going to be your antenna system, then your grounding, your electrical grounding. I don't even want to get on RF grounding. Don't get me started. Your electrical grounding. Once you get into your shack, more electrical grounding. And then choose whatever radio manufacturer tickles your fancy. Whatever makes you happy. If it's QRP, run QRP. If it's QRO, run QRO. And then ergonomics of your shack. Set up your shack the way you want things laid out. Take the time to figure it out. Go to places that sell desks and sit in one and see, and then just envision, if I have my radio here, my computer monitor here, how is everything going to lay out for me? Do I want to get 2 desks and put them together in a L shape configuration? Do I want one desk kind of rounded? There's tons of different desk choices. Just find what suits you and what suits the way you want your shack set up and roll with it. Or build one. Yeah.
And I mean, you can customize things. I've seen some really, really cool shacks, go in people's shacks and they've got like 3 TVs laid out above their radio. One of them's got, the photo spots on it. The other one's got something else. I mean, you can customize things and make some really interesting. It's what you want to make out of it.
Yeah, mine's a little bit out of date now, but as far as the radio, but the rest of it's pretty much the same. If you want to see how my shack's laid out, I do have a video of it's a short little video of a shack tour. Why it's still a mess underneath where all the cables and everything. I was in the process of building it, but I'll give you an idea how I have mine laid out and how I like mine. That doesn't mean that's how you're going to like it, but it may give you an idea of something to do. So.
I do videos of my shacks all the time.
Yeah.
1810, 7052. I got shacks everywhere.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah, pretty interesting stuff. And you know what? If you learned something tonight and you'd like to know more about something, I would suggest becoming a member of Discord and asking questions over there at Discord, because you know what? There is some really, really intelligent people in there. And if you're super interested about knowledge, I would suggest trying out a free 7-day trial of Patreon and then messaging me or Dan so we can get you the benefits. And come over into one of our voice chats one night, and you can ask any question you want in there, and you're going to get some really good answers. So that's where we're going to head next. We're going to head over to After Chat, which is a Discord benefit. And you can get free 7-day trial. Just message myself or Dan after you do it so we know to give you the benefit. Other than that, thanks everybody for the super chats and hanging out with us tonight. And in case you ain't noticed, I'm picking back up Steam. Even though I said no numbers this year, I'm just tired of playing a little bit. And I'm picking up back Steam because not September, but October. I'm just giving everybody a little heads up. You might want to take me out of Hammerworks in October. Because, or you might want to ground your phone really good.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, it's going to go off like crazy in October. Big trip planned to Canada, and lots of fun stuff going to be happening. Anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out with us, and hopefully we'll see y'all over at After Chat. 73, everybody.
See you guys.